Assalamu alaikum. This is Abdulaziz Khan. I was going through some Facebook feeds, so I see that some people they are, you can say, they are doing some kind of propaganda that the new 5G technology it has some serious health issues, and I feel that they are mixing some things. So I'm not very sure because I'm not expert of this thing that I don't know that 5G is related to health issues or not. 5G may have its own health issues, I mean, because it's even 4G, 3G, they also have health issues. But let's try to see that what is 5G and how it is different frequency wise. So if we go and try to see about the microwave or the frequency spectrum, so the electromagnetic frequency spectrum is quite long. Frequency starts from almost zero. You can have almost zero frequency, and because frequency is are waves per second or cycles per second, and it's generally it's called hertz. So you can have a frequency starting from almost 0.001 hertz, and then you can go up to any number. I mean, you can have a very high frequency, 10 to the power 20 hertz. So this frequency, 10 to the power 6 hertz, this is called megahertz. Before this megahertz, there is kilohertz as well. This kilohertz and megahertz, the people who have been listening to radio channels, FM radio or something like that, they must be aware of like this is FM radio. This is almost 88 to 108 megahertz, so it's almost here. So normal AM radio is in kilohertz, and it lies somewhere around here. So this frequency it is directly proportional to the wavelength. A wave has a wavelength, and the same wave it has a frequency. So if we go in wavelengths like this AM radio frequency, it has a wavelength of around 100 meters. So you need a very big antenna to catch this frequency. So if you go, the higher you go in frequency, the shorter is the wavelength. So for example, this frequency, this has a wavelength in 1 kilometer, then 100 meters, then 10 meters, around almost the size of a home. And then this is the frequency of 1 meter. So then we go this frequency of 1 by 10 meter, almost the size of a baseball. Then we go ahead, this is frequency of 1 micrometer, 1 millimeter. This is almost this dot. So if we go ahead, then this is almost 1 micrometer, the size of a bacteria. This is a cell, the size of a cell is a bit bigger than a bacteria. Then this is a virus, coronavirus, very famous nowadays. So coronavirus is almost a tenth of a micrometer. Then there is protein, almost 1 nanometer, and then this is a water molecule, less than a nanometer in size. So we go shorter and shorter, and then with the things when they become much shorter than the atom and the electron itself, then it's even not easy to see the shape, that what kind of shape it is. You have to use electron microscope or something like that to see this frequency. But as the frequency goes higher, the wavelengths go smaller, very smaller in size. So now if we talk about in frequency ranges, then this is, like I said, this is megahertz. 10 to the power 9 is gigahertz. So around 2 gigahertz frequency we used in microwave ovens. So after this gigahertz, this 12 is, this is terahertz. And when we go even higher, this 15 is 1000 terahertz. This is near to the visible light. And then we go further higher, 1 million terahertz, and then this is 100 million terahertz. This is the frequency of gamma rays. So gamma rays frequency or the radiation is a much higher frequency. This is one, it's multiple of hundreds of terahertz. So now first let us see some common names of these waves. The waves which are between megahertz to gigahertz, they are called radio waves because initially they were used for radio communication. Then we go higher, this is called microwave. This is called microwave because if you see this micrometer, it comes almost in the middle of this microwave. So because these waves, they were a multiple of micrometers in size, so they were called microwaves. And when we go further, then we come in the light spectrum. A very small spectrum of light is visible. After that, it's ultraviolet, and before that, visible light is infrared. So after infrared, then we have rays, that are X-rays and gamma rays. So if after this, if we come towards the source of these electromagnetic waves, so we start from here. These megahertz frequencies, these are generally emitted by radio station or generally the radio stations. They are sending these microwaves. And when we reach this gigahertz area, specifically this area, this area is used, the starting part of this area is used by the GSM mobile carriers, and the higher part is going to be used by 5G. 5G should not go beyond 60, 70, 80 gigahertz, so it will remain somewhere here. But initial 5G will be in 40 gigahertz as well, so we can say that 5G can take most of this region, but some part of this region is taken by the radars as well. And we know that radars are already there. They are working in a lot of area for defense purpose and other purpose like weather purposes and the other things. So these all sources are already there, like the radio stations, TV broadcast stations, the FM radios, the microwave oven at your home, the radars, and the mobile communication towers. So a lot of this frequency is already there in the air. So it's not something new. Now, if we go higher, then we will see that even the people, maybe some of you, it should be a news for you, but you know, the people, they also radiate energy. This is something we used in linguistically, but it is actual as well. The and we, the people, we emit a very high frequency with in contrast to the microwave and other frequencies. We emit infrared frequency, which is not visible. It's a bit less than the visible light, but and it is very low in power, very low in power. But we also emit a frequency. because everything emits a frequency, so we also emit a frequency. So then there's light bulb. Light bulb, they emit a very high frequency, 100 of terahertz or almost thousands of terahertz frequency, and they emit this frequency on a very high power as well. Sometimes you have at your home very high powered bulbs, so they are emitting waves on a very high power. Then there are X-ray machines and other radiation things like your ultrasounds and not directly ultrasound, but like the one that you use for chemotherapies and these kind of things, the radioactive things which are used for medical science. So they also have a very high frequency. So let's come back to our main question. Uh, so, like I told right now, I show you that current cellular bands, they are between 450 to 2.5 gigahertz, 450 megahertz, 2.5 gigahertz. The 5G spectrum is a bit higher than this. It's 27 to 28 gigahertz, and some part is a bit lower, 3.7 to 4.2 gigahertz. If I show it to you again here, all this is within this area. We are here. The 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, all G's, they lie here. And like some people, they are treating it like radiation. This radiation is here. When we talk about radiation, we are talking about something which is 100 million times high frequency than this frequency. So, and the current cellular bands are also in this frequency, and the microwave oven that we are using at our homes, they are also on this frequency. The Wi-Fi network that we are using at our homes, it is also 2.5 and 4.5 or 5 gigahertz. So the frequency that we are going to use in 5G, I know that it is not very safe. That is for sure. Any frequency is not very safe. It should not be brought very near to the humans. But pointing out specifically on 5G and correlating it with the coronavirus, I don't know what is the relation between these two things. And saying something like this frequency is like radiation, and the radiation which comes uh, out of the atomic bomb, or out of the uh, power stations which are run through atomic energy. These are two very, very different things. These frequencies, the higher frequencies, they, if you see this last one, this is the energy of one photon. Because this electromagnetic wave, it composed of two things. It is a wave, and it has a photon as well. I mean, it has dual properties. The waves, they are physical, or you can say that they have a material property in it, and then they have a wave property. So there are like we have electrons in normal atoms, so we have photons in electromagnetic waves. But as you go in higher frequencies, the energy of photons also increases in almost the same proportion. So, for example, this frequency, the photon energy level is quite low. But as you go higher, as you go in radiation, this photon is very highly energized. So these photons, what they do is that when they hit something, they can ionize. I mean, they can change the property of things. When you go really high, when you go above this light region, then the wave, it can ionize an atom. It can change the properties of atoms. So these high frequencies, that's why they can cause cancer. They can change the DNA of your cells. They can rupture your cells because they have very high energy. But if you see here, these frequencies, the photon, they have very low energy. So even I'm not against the idea. The continuous and very high exposure to these frequencies is also not good. But an exposure within some limits, an exposure with very low power, because you whenever you are using any new thing or you are using any technology, the technology has some benefits and technology have some, there are some pros and cons to everything. So i- I'm not saying that we must go for it, but what my point is that the people who have the knowledge, the people who are, like for example, the doctors or the people who can do research, they should do some research, because one big difference between 4G and 5G is that when we were in 2G, 3G, 4G, there were some big towers which were not very, which were not in every area, or which were not spread throughout the city. I mean, they were very limited number of towers. Even though someone can say that those towers are also very high in number, but if you compare it with 5G, in 5G the plan is to bring these small towers very near to your home. So there should be towers, like what we say is that in every road or every corner or near every big building there should be a tower. So but the difference is that these towers should have low they should be emitting low power, they should not be very high power. The current tower that we have, especially for the old technologies, the 2G technology, the tower was radiating power on a very high level, like for example 80 watt or 100 watt or 200 watt. But these 5G small towers, they should be very low powered, like 2 3 watt, 4 watt power. So the, the power uh, in a surface area, or you can say the power in an area, should not be very high if you compare it with old technologies. For example, in 2G, if one tower was sending 80 watt or 100 watts, so someone living very near to the tower, he was on a much higher risk. But in the last 20 30 years, we have seen that these technologies, they are not as killing, or they are not as uh, for us, they are not as harmful as it was initially thought. And maybe the studies are not very good. I mean, maybe there is some lapses in the studies, but what I personally feel is that these high power transmitters, they also did not do much harm. So when the 5G will come, and yes, there may be towers on there may be a lot of towers, but the overall, the power distribution should not be very high. And one thing that I want to say specifically for the people in India and Pakistan, and you can say the third world or the underdeveloped countries, because what I see is that the 5G penetration should not be very high in these areas, in Africa, in underdeveloped or less developed Asia, like East Europe. These areas they will not have a full-fledged 5G network maybe for 3, 5, or 10 years. But in the meantime, the developed nations like South Korea, some European countries, US. In US also some cities, not every city of US will get 5G, but some cities will get 5G. But South America will not get a lot of 5G. So the country which will get 5G much later, maybe 5 years or 10 years later than now, so they will be in a good position that they would be able to judge that what happens in the the countries where 5G comes a bit better, but bit earlier. For example, 5G is being rolled out in a lot of cities of the world. So within 2 3 years, we will know that what is going on in those cities, and based on that, countries like Pakistan, India, and these countries they can decide to not to roll out 5G, and because existing technologies are they are also not very bad. I mean, what I have said in my some other lectures and in some other article that I have written, that 5G is not for everyone. So everyone should not go for it. So even though personally I'm not convinced that 5G has any big health issue, but still if there is any issue, the people in less developed countries they are a bit fortunate that even if there is any issue, then they will be saved from it because it will come to them very late. So whoever got this message, my message is very simple that we should not talk a lot against 5G. 5G has big potential. 5G is very good in many ways, and a lot of new technologies are depending on the rollout of 5G. A lot of things which are being developed, like driverless cars, and a lot of automation is being done, keeping the 5G in mind. So let's not try to malign something without any knowledge. Yes, that is that we should do some research. We should see that why 5 we should go for 5G, we should go for 5G, or we should not go for 5G. But we should not at least say something bad about 5G without going through some real test. I mean, like for example, whenever some new technology is being tested, then it should be tested on some rats or some other animals to know that how it will behave with the humans. I mean, personally, as I told you in those figures as well, that 5G is not using any harmful frequency band. It's not very high frequency. It's almost the same frequency that we are already using. These same frequencies are already spread everywhere. So nothing new, nothing very new is coming through 5G, and we should keep our fingers crossed to see that what is good coming through this 5G, and if there is something bad coming, then I hope the people who are related to research and who have good knowledge of this thing, they should tell this in advance that okay, the 5G is not good and we should not go for the 5G. So I hope you should like this video. I was trying to make it for many days, so today I got some time. So I thought that I should put this video, and I should share my opinion on 5G. So if you have any question, then you can always contact me, and hope to see you in my next video. Assalamu alaikum.